Lock us in, load us in, pop in that 8-track, spin the tape. Here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the latest Resistance Recap, hosted by the two idiots that run the Star Wars Time Show. That's right. It's Matt and Nick and Pete and Ellie. All the cats, all the friends are around, and we're here to talk the latest episode of Star Wars. Excuse me. Blah, 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 blah. I'm speaking my Bausch. Right,
Yep.
Nick?
You're filling in with some Gungan, with some actual like Gungan language.
I got boom bastard by the boosie bastard in my head to gasker.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're going to talk about Star Wars Resistance. There we go. I got it out the mouth this time. Most recent episode, if you're keeping score again, we're S1E13, at least by Nick and I's score. And the title episode was Dangerous Business. Pretty good episode overall, but in terms of Easter eggs and Star Wars franchise references, it was a stinker. So we're going to go ahead and start out with that, Nick. I mean, this episode, Dangerous Business, one could argue that I probably could have just taken this week off and not done an Easter egg video because there really wasn't anything. I mean, I definitely had to get even more imaginative than last week with the one, and the other was just a blatant reference to an alien race we've heard and probably don't necessarily love. So that's all we got in this episode, my friend. 2 references. One very kind of loosey-goosey. The other one, anyone with ears could have picked up on it.
Yeah, so let's be clear too. If we only list 2 and Matt only finds 2, there's only 2 because Matt doesn't miss them. If you guys have been following along with the Resistance recap, then you know when Matt lists an Easter egg, it's true, it's legit, and you can go through the episode and you probably can't find any more. And mostly, the reason why we have so few in this episode is because of the setting of this episode. We're really kind of contained to 3 very small locations. So we're in the requisition office, which is Orca and Flix's kind of scrap little business. We're in a storage container, and we're in a what's essentially like a garage of some type. And that's about it. The hull of a ship
too.
Yeah, the hull of the starship.
Yeah.
So that's really our only location. So Matt, you were able to dig 2 out of these, these references and stuff like that.
The one I literally had to dig from deep within my anus.
Yeah.
And that's number 1. Okay, so there's a moment where, as Nick said, this episode's contained to a few locales on the Colossus. In particular, acquisitions, the shop ran by that kind of tall birdie-looking thing and squatty-looking pig thing with ears, Flix and Orca. Anyways, while Kaz is out and about getting himself locked up in crates, BB-8's holding down the fort, and this shady character comes in and wants to steal something, so they kind of get into a tussle. And as BB-8's doing his best to fight a humanoid alien with a blaster, again, he has no real appendages outside the little gadgets he has stuffed in his ball, he pulls out what I call a heroic Skywalker-esque rope swing. So why is it Skywalker-esque, Nick?
It's from episode 4, everybody, when they make the swing over the Death Star pit, him and Leia, as they're swinging from one door to another to escape the chasing stormtroopers. So, I mean, like, that's the Skywalker-esque rope swing.
I mean,
right
the twins love to swing on ropes because they do it again in Return of the Jedi. So I mean, that's kind of like their thing. This time, I don't think they kissed.
No,
but the first time, they definitely got Luke got a smooch for good luck from old
Sissy. Exactly. And this entire sequence of events, that one in particular was a very good calling out the rope swing. But if you look
it looked great too. I loved seeing his little bulbous ass just kind of swing through. Like, I almost wish. Actually, I don't, because they do it in Revenge of the Sith. But they added if they add the Tarzan call to it. But they actually did that. George did that in Revenge of the Sith when Chewbacca rope swings. See, rope swings is kind of a thing in Star Wars.
Yep,
Swings
yep.
down to take out that separatist like droid tank.
Yeah, exactly. When they were on the water. So there's a yeah. Now that
That's
you think about
exactly
it,
how it sounds too.
oh man. Like you would figure that Indiana Jones was more apt to have rope swings in it, which there's a lot. I mean, like if you go back through the Indiana Jones series, he uses his whip to swing often, but George is apparently a fan of that kind of stuff and then,
Yeah.
fits them into Star
I
Wars
mean,
as
Indy
well.
definitely came into mind when I was trying to justify even including that moment in the Easter egg breakdown. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, you correctly picked out the Skywalker, link there. And then also, if you've seen the whole sequence breakdown and how BB-8's essentially fighting this character that Matt mentioned, there is a bit of reminiscence to the scene in Episode 3 when R2 and Anakin crash on the Separatist flagship, and R2 fights these two super battle droids by himself, like sets them on fire and flies up and electrocutes them and does all this shit. There's a little bit of reminiscence to that as well, but I think that the right call out, the true Easter egg was the rope swing moment. So good catch by you, Matt. And then so moving on to number 2, and like you said, this is more of like a call out of an alien race that we
I mean,
know.
it's a straight up reference. And Flix and Orca, who I'm assuming are a couple, or kind of like an odd couple, if you will, with their little pit droid buddy.
Yeah.
They went on a holiday, and that's why Kaz and BB-8 were holding down acquisitions. But anyways, upon their return, they're arguing, and something pops up, and Flix comes out and essentially mentions that he's part Gungan, which is funny to think about because he looks like this, again, kind of a flamingo with a bulbous body, and he wears goggles.
Yeah, he
Uh,
doesn't look like a Gungan as you
but
would
was it Orc was
typically.
essentially making fun of his dad for being Gungan or something?
Yeah, it was a very odd kind of conversation that you entered into in that scene, but it does like if you look at Flix, he doesn't look like it like
I
a
mean, who knows
Gungan.
if he was just full of shit or just yanking our legs? But it again, it was a reference, so and it was an easy one to pick up. I mean, arguably the easiest franchise reference out of all of the references I've found so far because it's a direct reference to the Gungan race.
Yeah, yeah, and if you guys are struggling out there to figure out who the Gungan is, the famous Gungan is that Matt mentions.
Husa or Yusa, Misa
Yeah,
Jar Jar Binks. Okay, you got
Misa Jar Jar Binks, correct. So yeah, that's Jar Jar if you're wondering what a Gungan is, who they are. So just go look at the end of episode 1 and you'll see a whole host of Gungan
I mean, they had
as
a
they.
direct hand in giving the Chancellor emergency powers.
Yeah, they as in Jar Jar. So yeah, like
He's
you
their
said,
shining star on the galactic stage, though.
dude, it would be
Mr. Binks.
hilarious. Like there should be a plaque somewhere in the Imperial headquarters thanking Jar Jar for his service to
Dude,
the
a
Empire.
plaque. I mean, Palpatine should have built him a statue for Christ's sake.
Yeah, no, just
I
like
mean, that was the easiest con Palpatine had to do in his decades-long planning of the Sith takeover of the galaxy.
yeah,
That was
you have to
he's
get.
like, holy shit, how did this stumble into my lap? Ah, best part is Padme's not even here, so he's literally gonna hand over the vote for Naboo.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. This is
You have to
easy.
manipulate probably the easiest.
He's like, I don't even have to try. I mean, he didn't have to
Yeah,
use the dark side. Nothing. I mean, nothing.
he just puts on a sad face and kind of looks at him, and then
Yeah,
that's all he
he
needed to
had
do.
Masamita do most of the work, I believe. Wasn't that blue guy's name that
Yeah,
sat with him in the
his
center?
essentially like yeah his lackey, his
Yeah.
imperial, his not imperial, but his senatorial lackey.
Yeah. So,
Um,
anyways, we're not
yeah.
here to like really beat on Jar Jar. I mean, he's taken enough, but Gungans were mentioned in Resistance, so it had to make the Easter egg and franchise breakdown video. So, as Nick and I kind of teased, that's it. I mean, there was really nothing else. At one point, I swear the crate that Kaz gets locked in had a number designation that should have made sense. I thought it was lead at first, but as I looked at it, the only way you could just determine what it would be if they were numbers would be an L7, a 1, and a 3. I'm just like, that wasn't ringing a bell. I mean, one of the biggest numberings in Star Wars universe is, what, 1338?
Yeah, TK421
Yeah,
1338, and then like
right, because that
um
was
the
Lucas's
cell number.
THX movie. So,
Yeah.
anyways, let's get on to the recap and review of this episode. Again, this was season 1, episode 13, titled Dangerous Business. Uh, let's just start from the get go, Nick. So, it opens up with kind of a surprise scene, at least a surprise for Team Fireball, as they happen upon Kaz, who has taken it upon himself to not only secure parts for the Fireball, but to repair it so Tam can actually get a chance to fly it. So I like this opening. Again, it's kind of this since we've come back from the midseason break, we are seeing Kaz change a bit. He's becoming more proactive, more of a I don't want to see a team player because I think he's always been a team player, but he's just I don't know, he's thinking about people more and he's thinking about taking care of people, making people happy. I mean, he is becoming that hero we've talked about.
Yeah, he's also becoming more competent. Like he's trying to show his competency to Tam and to Yeager, and so instead of him being known as the idiot boy who can't do anything, like he's a mechanic who can't fix
Yeah.
anything. Like he's now showing that look, I can do this. I can make these repairs. I can, you know, install these parts without you guys hanging over my shoulder. Now, granted, he doesn't do it perfectly, which is why he ends up in acquisitions, but he's showing the proactiveness and leadership quality, I guess you would say. Like he's showing that he can be a leader and he can do things on his own without having somebody hanging over his shoulder. So
Yeah,
that was really cool.
I think it just also shows the type of person that he is. I mean, Tam's always complaining like Kaz doesn't even fix it. He's the one that always breaks it. He always gets to fly it. I mean, the fact that he went and basically loaned out himself to get the parts and then tried to fix it shows a lot about who Kaz is becoming and really who he's always been. But you can tell like he's very comfortable now with his new family on the Colossus. So, as Nick hinted, the reason Kaz ends up in acquisitions is because he made a deal with Flix and Orca, like, hey, give me those parts now, and I will work them off. So they essentially enlist him to watch the shop for the day as they go on a holiday. And so that's really where the main part of this episode kicks off, is when Kaz is left alone with BB-8 to hold down the fort in acquisitions.
Yeah, so that opens up all of the upcoming events, and it really starts off when this new character by the name of Taraj Key comes in looking for a very specific type of part that he had ordered previously from Flix and Orca, and he had been waiting on for at least, I think he said it had been 2 weeks or something like that that he ordered it. He didn't get it. He was very angry. So essentially Kaz goes to look for this piece of material or this piece of equipment that Taraj ordered, and then things kind of snowballed from there. That's where his shadiness and his you could kind of tell that he wasn't a guy that was just looking for a part for his starship, right?
Oh, easily. I mean, this guy walks in. I don't know who did his voice acting. He kind of sounded like Dexter from Attack of the Clones. Dex, the guy that
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan goes to visit.
Yep, in the diner.
Anyways, he had a great voice, this Taraj Key. But yeah, as Nick said, as soon as he came in, the way he was kind of bearing his chest around, like, I want to, I get to, you just tell he was shady. And you could tell that he was not who he said he was. And as Nick and I were talking before we went live, we were like, this episode really kind of strung us along a bit before they really punched us back with that first order plot. But we both realized that there was something more than meets the eye with Taraj. And as we'll find out as we work our way through the recap, he definitely was not who he said he was at first.
Yeah, exactly. So, after kind of hassling Kaz for this new part, Taraj ends up just buying a bunch of random parts from him anyway because Kaz can't give him what he's looking for. And then after that is, I mean, like I was watching a little bit at work, but I think they both like Kaz and BB-8 have like some sort of get together discussion after he leaves the office or the shop. He's like, they're like, there's something wrong with this guy, and then Kaz goes to like follow him, Doesn't he try to follow him to wherever he's going to see what kind of information he could get on this guy? Like he knows that there's something up with him, so he goes to try to, see what his motivations are and what exactly he's looking for. And then this is where Kaz gets caught in a trap. He gets caught in some sort of large shipment container and left there to essentially die if it was up to Taraj. And that's where we get to the scene with BB-8 and Taraj back in the shop as Taraj is going to there to basically rip it apart and look for this phase connector that he was requesting previously.
Yeah, so I mean, BB-8 kind of warned Kaz, but it shows again that Kaz, I mean, he's serious about being a resistance spy, and he's going to take any lead he comes across these days, and he's going to follow up on it. So he does. He gets himself caught very easily. I mean, this is the clumsy aspect of Kaz's heroism, after all. I mean, it's almost the way he gets captured, Nick. It's almost like he wanted to get captured that way. But anyways,
Yeah.
it was to kind of give BB-8 his moment, as we talked about during the Easter egg section of this Resistance recap. But BB tries his damnedest to kick this guy's ass, gets a rope swing going on, breaks out some of his tools, wasn't enough. So Taraj makes off with the phase connector, which we're going to reveal its purpose. I mean, it was very. I like that they kept the mystery behind the device throughout the episode until the very end, where we casually learned what it was for, but it's not just a casual device. It's going to have some pretty big impacts on Kaz's mission moving forward. Excuse me. So, after Taraj leaves with the phase connector, Kaz, he gets himself out. He uses some of his new mechanics ingenuity. Kind of does the old, I'm going to get a magnifying glass and fry an ant trick, but
I saw
on metal,
that.
right?
It was hilarious because he was using an actual flame, though, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was the way he explained it was whatever torch that was, like it would not get hot enough or strong enough to melt through the metal of the crate.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he had to use that amplifying glass or whatever to kind of torch it up.
Yep. Yeah, so that was a really cool scene, just seeing him, I guess, MacGyver his way out of this crate. It was really cool, and it was just in time because he was literally seconds from death. Like, this crate was being dropped off into the ocean that is underneath the Colossus station, and he was really working on a time crunch. So the way the scene plays out is he's up there, he cuts it, the doors open, and right at that moment, boom, the crate falls. And you think, oh my God, is he in the water? Is he dead? Where is he? Where did he go? And
No,
then
he
lo and
pulled a
behold,
Luke. He like shot
yeah.
up. I mean, he didn't use the force obviously, but he kind of shot out and grabbed the rafters. I just like the interaction with the bozo that was dropping him.
Oh
Guy's
yeah,
like, "What are you doing up there?" He's like,
working.
I'm working." He's like, "All right, whatever."
Yeah, it was a great interaction between those two.
Yeah, so once Kaz gets out, he obviously now knows Taraj is up to no good, and he's going to go steal the phase connector. He checks in, BB-8 knows it's stolen. So he heads off down to the loading dock, the docking bays, whatever, and he finds Taraj, sees him load on the ship, follows him onto the ship. That's when we finally get it, Nick, right? That's when we finally
Hmm.
get the reveal in this episode, the big picture. We finally learn who Taraj is working for and what they're planning to do. No, we don't really learn what they're planning to do with it yet, but we definitely learn Taraj's true intentions.
Yeah, we finally get that reveal when the stormtroopers of the First Order march onto the deck of the ship and start having a conversation with Taraj about his newly acquired mechanical device, this phase connector. So we know finally, towards the end of the episode, that Taraj was indeed working for the First Order to provide them with this piece of machinery that they need to go about their evil deeds. So once Kaz sees these troopers walk onto the ship, he goes into high alert mode. And it is also at that moment that he realizes that he's been followed onto this ship by a very intrepid little friend
I'm
from
glad
the
you're bringing him
acquisitions.
up because honestly, dude, Bitey, Bitey was one hell of a little special guest character in this episode.
He was. He was. He was really fun. So in the beginning of the episode, this little creature called Bitey is sitting in acquisitions with Flix and Orca, and Kaz kind of waves his hand at him, and he gets bit right on the finger. And I think it was Orca that told
Well,
him
they
like,
warned
"Hey,
him. They said, "Don't
yeah,
wiggle your fingers in front of his face."
exactly." It's like he thinks that they're food. So Bitey is the one that essentially saves the day in this situation because Kaz is trying to figure out a way to bring the ship down. Like I can't. They've already taken off. They're already off of the Colossus, and they're heading out of the planetary system. And Kaz is scrambling to try to figure out how he can bring the ship down. And then he realizes, holy shit, Bitey's right here. He's got the sharpest teeth of anything that's ever bitten me. So he just baits him into biting through the circuit board on the ship and bringing it down. So I thought that was pretty fun.
It,
Like
it
he's
was a fun it was a fun moment, especially when Bitey hits the circuitry, and he's like, yeah, and
yeah.
then that's when Taraj and the troopers, all hell breaks loose at that point, right? I mean, they
hmm
start shooting at Bitey, shooting at Kaz. Kaz gets off in an escape pod, and he's like, oh no, Bitey sacrificed himself. But luckily, we find that Bitey actually jumped onto the escape pod himself and was just stuck to the windshield. So thankfully, Bitey was not just a tragic hero. He
Yeah.
could come back. Like Bitey's arc is not over yet. So,
He's not.
anyways,
He's not done.
he's not. Trust me, people. Bitey's worth watching this episode for alone. He's great. He
Yeah.
gets a lot of good little comedic moments in. But anyway, so Kaz and Bitey are successful in sinking the ship, taking it down, and ultimately destroying the phase connector that the First Order was trying to steal via proxy through Taraj Key. And that's the interesting thing here, right? So now the First Order, we know they've used pirates via proxy to screw with the Colossus and essentially get their invite to become its protectors. And now they're using characters like Taraj Key to steal items from the Colossus for their endgame. So we still really didn't know what this device was until the end here, Nick, when, Kaz obviously returns to acquisitions. It's a mess because of the fight with Taraj and BB. Flix and Orca, they come back. They're not too pissed at Kaz because I thought it was funny that they were happy that Kaz was willing to blow up a ship and their product just to make sure that someone couldn't steal it, first off.
Yeah, yeah, they were actually impressed. They weren't mad. They were impressed. And if you look at the shop,
The
is
shop's
in
destroyed.
complete
I mean, it was
disrepair.
a
Yeah,
disaster.
but it was really cool. And then that leads Kaz to essentially ask, like, what is this device? Like, why was he so bent on taking this? And Flix and Orca are kind of, they don't come out and say like, "Oh my god, this is huge." They're like, "Well, this is like a mining device. Like people use this to mine asteroids and other celestial bodies to essentially hollow them out if possible, if they're looking for minerals or something like that." And it doesn't ring a bell for Kaz, and rightly so, but it should ring a bell for anybody who knows anything about the upcoming trilogy, about TFA,
Well, I
even
mean,
about
Kaz, it
it
was
should ring a
curious
bell.
to him because he was like,
Yeah,
"Hey, I need to let the Resistance know," because if you remember, Kaz has seen
the hollowed out asteroid.
right. So I mean, he correctly guesses, I believe, that they could be using this to either mine more Deadlanite to make more blasters,
Yeah,
or as Nick and I I think are thinking. Maybe they needed these things to help them hollow out the core of Starkiller Base, and they're just kind of
exactly.
needing it for the finishing touches. Either way, he learns that they were trying to jack via proxy a device that's used to essentially carve up planets, if you will, for their innards, blow them away. I mean, if you've seen the construction of Starkiller Base, they essentially hollowed out the core of this planet with
And then
something, and
yeah,
this is potentially the type of tools that they use. So I mean that's why we like this show, right, Nick? It's when we get these little lore nuggets that progress the show's plot, but also kind of give some insights into the film trilogy that we've been watching, and we can't wait to see end this December.
Yeah, there was no way that we were going to find out exactly how the First Order hollowed out these celestial bodies, the asteroid that we saw in the previous episode of Resistance and Starkiller Base through the movies. It's just not an important enough plot point to kind of throw in there. So that's why these shows, these comic books, and stuff like that are useful. We finally get context behind, how something as incredible as Starkiller Base was built. Like, how do you take an entire planet, hollow it out, and then build an entire like first order base inside of it? Well, now we know in small part what was used to do that. So it's really cool to see something like this make its way into Resistance and then also give context into the new film trilogy. So it was really cool to see something like that.
Yeah, so while the episode was fun, I mean, really 3/4 of it, you're kind of like, oh, this is neat. We're getting to see Kaz again, just kind of spreading his wings, becoming more of that Star Wars hero, albeit with Kaz's style applied to it. But then at the end, the last act, the climax, if you will, you got some good stuff. I mean, you learned that, yeah, hey, the First Order is always trying to fuck with the Colossus, get the upper hand, get an advantage, and in this case, just steal from it. And we also learned that what they're trying to steal were tools that could be used to do some of the stuff we saw they did on Starkiller Base, and obviously earlier in this show itself, how they, mined for Deadland Knight to make massive amounts of blasters. So ultimately, Nick, it ended up being a pretty good episode. I mean, anytime they can infuse the First Order plot in, get Kaz doing his resistance spy thing, I'm always going to be a big fan.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm glad that we're back on this track. The first episode, like you said, last week was definitely a reintroduction, a slow ramp up back into the season. But I think now that we have this, the first order plot sprinkled back in, and ultimately knowing where we're going with this season, I'm looking forward to next week's episode and then moving forward to see how this is going to ramp up even more. What else are we going to see? Who else is going to be involved? We had a mention of Captain Phasma in this episode. After, Taraj reached out to Commander Pyre saying, I couldn't get it. Like I had it. And then, the ship was taken down by this mechanic from the Colossus station. And, I can't get it. Pyre was quick to say, Captain Phasma is not going to be pleased with this. So I'm really interested to see where this plot line goes and how, if we're going to see any other first order people. Like, we know that we're at least going to see General Hux on, via HoloNet. So should be
I,
really
I
interesting.
I think if anything else, this series has proven that Captain Phasma probably was the true number 3 in the First Order. I mean, she was definitely in charge of some big shit. I
I
mean,
think so. Yeah.
cleanup duty, the nefarious side of the First Order. I mean, if you can say they have one, since their whole side's nefarious, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, she definitely was the doer. I mean, because at this point, Kylo's out on his journey to find clues about the map to Luke, and Huxley boy is just worried about getting Starkiller ready so he can do his big, Hitler speech and blow away the Hosnian system.
Yeah, she was on
Phasma's
the
the one
ground.
like accomplishing stuff, getting minerals made and then blowing up the place so no one can track them. Getting
Yeah.
this Colossus situation figured out, probably so they can have a fuel reserve. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think the show is showcasing that she was a pretty big player within the First Order, and that's probably why she got the nice cool armor.
Yeah, exactly. So, um, that about wraps it up for this episode of Resistance. Again, it was definitely better than the last one, and it sets up some really interesting interactions moving forward in season one. And I'm really looking forward to the next episode. I think this one was a really strong one, and yeah, there's a
But
lot to cover.
yeah, I believe from here on out, they're gonna all include the First Order plot. I mean, let's see. The first half, I believe, went 11 episodes. We might get a full season around 2022.
Yeah,
If that's the case, though, I believe this thing's just going to ramp up towards a pretty massive climax slash cliffhanger type of ending. So stay tuned. Nick and I will be doing our Resistance recap for the Star Wars Time Show. And, I'll be doing the video recap and reviews for the episodes themselves, as well as Easter egg and Star Wars franchise reference videos. We've got you covered. That's why we call ourselves Star Wars Time, right? There's always time for Star Wars Time. And Nick and I make sure to make plenty of time for that type of time. All right, people? Stay tuned for the next episode of Resistance Recap and the Star Wars Time Show proper, where we're going to have some special things to talk about. I've already found something this week. I think it's another Hamill troll moment. You never know. He could be spoiling stuff. It was good. It's on the site right now. Check it out, starwarstime.net. We're bringing it at you, people. We are a Star Wars resource you want in your life. All right. Until next time, may that force be with you. Always.